Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's 30 Minutes program. I'm Paul Tinkle, and I'm very pleased to have with me today the Attorney General that is from West Tennessee, the Western District of Tennessee, Mr. Joseph C. Murphy, Jr., but it's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
What brought you here today, this week, this time, to come up here in Northwest Tennessee?
I'm with the U.S. Attorney's Office in Memphis, and we cover the entire western end of the state in Perry County. So we have everything west of the Tennessee to the Mississippi and the one county on the other side of the Tennessee, and we handle federal prosecutions for the United States. So we represent the federal government in the United States courts and in the state courts. And today we came up to talk to the District Attorney General, General Johnson, and law enforcement in the area about federal crimes and to see, what they've got going on and whether we could help them with any prosecutions.
General, I've got to ask you some since we're in a time of what seems to be ugliness that we have in our country. Most recently, people setting people on fire, just a lot of bad stuff. Why are people being so mean nowadays? Or has it been all of this? Or is it just multiplied because of what we've got with social media and so forth? Well,
I think if you go back to Cain and Abel.
Okay, that's a good start.
People have always been mean. We're imperfect, fallen man. And I think we've seen a lot more crime than we did in the past in cities and in rural areas. And I think it's a challenging situation, but my office is interested in doing something about it. And that's why we had this event today, because we want to pick up any cases we can. But, on a philosophical note, there's always been a criminal justice system. It goes back to the beginning of organized society, and the goal of it is to deal with people that don't follow the laws.
When did you decide to become an attorney?
Actually, when I was in third grade, I decided I wanted to be an attorney, and I was in Mrs. Johnson's class at St. Eulalia grade school in Maywood, Illinois. And then when I was in seventh grade, I was taken, we had a school field trip down to the federal building in Chicago, and we went to the court of Judge Abraham Lincoln Marovitz. And we did kind of a fake trial, and I got to be the prosecutor, and I thought, this has got to be the coolest thing ever.
A lot of people don't realize how important it is to have people that know how to represent you, or more than anything else, who to go to. I mean, sometimes people need some people to help them. I mean, there are cases after case, they just don't know who to go to.
Well, and, that's definitely the case. And, that's what attorneys are for. Attorneys' main job is to represent you, whatever your problems are. It might be a divorce. It might be a contract dispute. In my case, it's a crime's been committed. And rather than representing an individual, I represent the United States. But, attorneys are there to help you. And I think we have a unique position in terms of dealing with problems people have and societies have.
While we have just a moment, I want to back up a little bit. When did you decide you wanted to go to Lambeth University? When did you decide you wanted to become an attorney? You mentioned this a moment ago, but you went to the school of Humphrey, is that right?
Yeah.
And so
Memphis State.
Yeah. So how did this how does this begin from you?
Well,
a guy from Illinois that comes to Tennessee.
Sure. My grandmother was from Jackson, Tennessee, and her father ran off all the boyfriends, and she was approaching what at the time was old maid territory, where she probably couldn't have gotten married. And she would go up to Chicago in the summers and work at Marshall Fields, and she met an Irish policeman, and they got married. And he was a World War I veteran, born in 1887. And when he retired, they started a family. They had some of it in Chicago. When he retired, they came back to Jackson. They had 6 kids. So I grew up making a lot of trips to Jackson as a child, and then
that was a long drive, by the way.
Oh, it was down Highway 45.
We didn't have, by the way, folks, we didn't have 4 lanes back then.
Right.
We didn't have an interstate yet. Eisenhower was working on it.
It was 2 lanes, and when you went through southern Illinois, you would see the oil pumps burning the natural gas off at the pump, and it was 2 lanes. And so I'm one of 8. So we have 6 boys and 2 girls, and I had to pave my way through school, and I had gone down to Lambeth several times when I was a kid. My mother would go see faculty members that she knew, and like Dr. Oxley, and she knew some people that were on the faculty, and I got a scholarship to Lambeth, and I earned my way through school, but it made the difference. With my scholarship, I could pay for school working summers, and that's what I did. I worked 60 hours a week typically every week until I went back to school. And going back to school was a great break.
You look very young. I don't know how long you've been practicing law, so tell me.
I have been practicing, 41 years now.
Mm-hmm. What's the best part of your job right now as being the Attorney General of Western District here in West Tennessee?
I think the best part of it is I've got the opportunity to make a positive impact on the place I live in. It's a place I love, whether it be Memphis, Jackson, Union City, we have an opportunity to make a incredibly positive impact, and deal with these challenges we have with gun crime and wire fraud and mail fraud, all that.
There's so much going on right now. Fentanyl, is that your biggest drug right now? Or is it, what else? Cocaine, what else is it today?
Well, right now what we see a lot of is fentanyl, and we see a lot of meth. You don't see as much cocaine as you used to, and you see a lot of oxycodone. And one disturbing trend we're seeing is drug dealers get fentanyl, and they use it to make counterfeit look-alike pills. So you may be taking Loratab or think you're taking Xanax, but it may all be fentanyl or mostly fentanyl. And, the overdose deaths have just skyrocketed.
Would you know it if you saw it?
No.
Would you smell it and know what it was? Or?
No.
How do you know what you're getting? I mean, if the Attorney General doesn't know, how do we know if we're getting the good stuff or the bad stuff?
Well, you don't, because these counterfeit pills look exactly like the real things. They buy pill presses and they make a basically counterfeit product. So you don't know what you're getting, and that's why it's so dangerous.
I drive Interstate 40 like you do quite a bit, and I see a lot of, I guess you'd call them police cars, but they're there in the middle of the, you know where I'm going?
Right.
Okay, so now that you know that we got police cars or various law enforcement cars, and they're sitting right there in the middle, what are they doing?
Well, generally, they're there looking for all kinds of crime. So, if they see a car that's reported stolen, they would stop it. If they see a car for a traffic violation, for example, here's a case I had. An officer stopped a van in Shelby County, and when the driver rolled down the window, it was a stop for a legitimate traffic violation. He smelled marijuana, and he asked for permission to search the van, and they gave him permission, and there were 400 pounds of marijuana in the van. And so they're looking for any crime they might find.
We have what appears to be, and correct me please at any time, we have a lot of foreigners. You can use the word Mexican if you want to, or any others, but it seems though we have a lot of people in this country. I'm not getting into ICE just yet, but what we have are people that are driving these 18-wheelers, and they're carrying a load. And in some of those loads, it ain't what it should be in those loads, or they're hidden in those loads. Let's talk about that for a moment.
Well, you get that some, that definitely. The drug dealers know that if you put drugs in the front of a truck with 40,000 pounds of cargo, it's going to be difficult for the officers to locate it. Drug dogs help, but you see a lot of drugs, they're smuggled in cars with, say, false compartments. I think one thing that we've seen that's different is we used to see pretty big seizures. I remember seizures of 400 pounds of cocaine on up, 400 kilos, which would be closer to 1,000 pounds. But I think the trend you see are smaller shipments, because if there is a stop and the cocaine's discovered, you're less likely to lose a big amount at one pop.
General Joe Murphy is our guest. We're talking with the Attorney General for Western District of Tennessee. That follows back with a question of how do you stop this? And then I want to get into the airport business. Are you folks involved in that too?
Yes, somewhat, sure.
Okay, because there's a lot of drugs that come in a lot of different places.
Well, the challenge we've got in America is we have huge borders, and you get a lot of commercial traffic. You have criminal organizations that have been smuggling for literally decades, even before they started smuggling drugs. Mm-hmm. And it can be difficult to stop every single bit because there's so much of it, and there's frankly a lot of profit in it. Now we do the best we can. We try and stay ahead of drug dealers, but we've got dedicated people working on it, but it's not easy. But we've enjoyed a lot of success because, in addition, they've got to bring the drugs over, but they got to get the money out too. So under federal law, we can prosecute somebody for processing drug money.
The thing that I occasionally I go back to where President Trump was a few years ago, trying to build this wall. Would that wall have helped?
Oh, I think it would have, yeah.
And so we're going to end up putting that wall up, and I'm not asking you to put you on the spot here, but isn't that the whole purpose, is to keep people out, like the fentanyl druggist and so forth?
Well, if you have a wall, you've got a better chance to control the border, because you reduce the number of places somebody can enter. Whereas if the border's wide open, there's literally hundreds, if not millions, of different places they can get across the border.
I don't know what the number is, 7 million, 10 million. I don't know what the total number is, but that is a problem for you, isn't it?
Sure. And we prosecute cases where we've got immigration violations.
Is it a heavy number?
We're so far from the border that it's not like, say, being in Arizona. But prosecution of immigration violations is a priority for the administration, and when we get those cases, we do them, definitely.
There's so many things that your office covers, and as I just call tiptoe all of these things around, but the thing that I've heard a lot about this from attorneys and prosecutors, and it's all the same problem, and that is child pornography. You have to deal with that, and this is getting to be a bigger problem than because of the social media problems that we're dealing with.
Right. Well, I think that's true, and I think I've been with the office 36 years, and so I started before really the rise of the Internet, and the Internet has just made it easier to distribute things like child pornography, but we aggressively prosecute those cases when we can.
Tell me more about that. I mean, these are people that are taking away a child's childhood.
Sure, and their innocence. Well, we can prosecute people for producing child pornography. In other words, making it, for distributing it. We can prosecute people for possessing it. For people that produce it and distribute it, we've got mandatory minimum prison sentences, but I think you've seen a great deal more child pornography as the internet spread, and I think that that makes it more available.
I know you understand the word dark web. That is where all the ugliness really gets hot on fire. Can you control that? Can you fix that? Can you stop that?
Well, the difficult thing is people came up with the dark web to evade law enforcement in a lot of cases. And what people can create, you can take apart. And I think just the fact that law enforcement is aware of it, and I've had cases that involve people, say, buying steroids over the dark web. You can deal with it. And a way to think about it, it's almost like it's a network that is more difficult to access, but it's still got to go through servers, and now the server may be in Bulgaria or someplace like that, but all this digital activity leaves footprints someplace, and it gives you the ability to prosecute it.
What is the number one crime you have to deal with?
In Memphis, it's probably, and I'd say West Tennessee, it's violent crime involving guns and gun violations.
Why?
Well, federal law basically prohibits certain people from possessing firearms. Convicted felons are a prime example. We do a lot of those cases. Regular and chronic drug users right now can't possess firearms. And I think over time, when people who are violent can get guns, rather than using their fist, they use a gun. And I think there's an element of, with some of the younger people, it's cool to have guns. And I think that's a lot of the reason. I think, there's always been violence. Again, you go back to Cain and Abel, it's kind of an inescapable aspect of human life, and we have to do everything we can to basically prevent it from happening and to punish those that engage in it.
We're with Mr. Joseph Murphy, Jr. He is the Attorney General for West Tennessee. A lot of things have happened in the last few years. Let's go to Nashville for just a moment. We've had, and I suspect that it's everywhere, and I hate to say that, but we have a lot of craziness that are dealing with people that want to come in and shoot our children.
Yes.
Our teachers, our cafeteria workers, all of these people. What's going on here?
Well, that's horrible. And I think a lot of times people that engage in that kind of behavior, they look for targets of opportunity. And I can't explain why people do things like that. Obviously, it's evil. But I think the best thing we can do as a society is those people that it's illegal for them to possess firearms, we need to make sure they don't possess firearms. And if they do, they're punished for it.
When we go back to Covenant here for just a few minutes, are those things stoppable before they happen? Do you see any way out? You were in Shelby County. There's a lot of crime there, and I know you don't like it. They don't like it in Nashville. We don't like it here in Union City or Martin. I mean, we all hate crime.
Well, there's probably cases where it is stoppable if we know about it. We can only stop what we know about. So, if people have got a relative, say that's, got problems and they have access to guns and they express an interest in harming people, the police need to know about it. We don't know about it, we can't do anything about it. But I think, people need to be aware of what's going on. They need to tell police officers if something's going on, and then we can take steps to prevent it.
President Trump has been shot at twice, or at least, and maybe even a third time. I don't, or could have been. I don't know. But how does that make an attorney general like yourself? How do you feel about that when, all of this stuff that's just swelling now with FBI and other agencies?
Sure. Well, I think anytime you have attempted assassinations of political leaders, that's extremely dangerous, or assassinations, that kind of says something about the extent to which people are willing to go to make things happen. I think, again, it goes back to, are those people that ought to possess firearms, and are we doing everything we can to keep them from possessing firearms and to punish people that violate those firearms laws? We've got a pretty good set of laws in the federal system to deal with people who shouldn't have firearms. But obviously, when somebody tries to kill the president, in fact, I remember where I was when John F. Kennedy was assassinated. I was watching television. I was like maybe 5 years old, and I went out and they came on and said, the president's been assassinated. My mother was out on the porch talking to Mrs. Zimmerman. I went out and said, Mother, the president's been shot. And she said, oh, no, that can't be. And I remember as a kid living through a period of time where it seemed like there was assassination, a constant stream of them. John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King. I remember when George Wallace was shot, but they seem to be a common occurrence. And obviously we don't want that happening.
The other thing, General, is that you are obviously a man of God. I feel this in our conversation. But you're very, very, I think you have to be a psychologist to dig in on some of these cases. Tell me I'm wrong about that.
Well, here's the thing. There are cases where it's important to, the why can be important, right? Because it goes to motive. And I think one thing I've seen over my career is I'm amazed at people's ability to surprise you. It's just incredible. And I think you have to be a psychologist in the sense that you may be working an investigation. What's this person going to do next? What do we need to be looking at? But human beings, they're endless in terms of the way they can come up with new things to do.
Do you watch crime TV?
Yeah, I do. I do. I enjoy it. I like. I just got done watching the series Mobland on Paramount. Great show. But yes, I do watch crime TV.
Why do you do that?
It's just, I find it's just interesting. I mean, I can relate to it. It's interesting to see what other people's takes are on crime, but I don't know. It's what I do, and I love what I do.
I can't understand why people want to be so mean. And I don't know how else to say this, but did they have a bad family life growing up? I mean, where does it begin? And I know you have seen this, looking down and to see what was the background on this kid or on this adult.
Sure. Well, look, I think one thing that surprises me is the human ability to overcome difficult situations. Okay. I mean, it can be tremendous. And anybody that's lived, a while has seen that over and over again. People that come from bad circumstances and they just do great. And they don't do great because of the bad circumstances, but despite the bad circumstances. And there's other people that they just seem to, they move from one difficulty to another. And I don't know that there's any reason to explain it other than, life's easier if if you have good direction either from a church or a baseball coach, a scout leader, an aunt, an uncle. Good input from people makes for a better person. And I think, we all bear some responsibility for other people to do well and helping them out.
Are you bothered emotionally? Do you find yourself, and I'm asking you maybe to share with us with other attorneys, but we have people that go to the electric chair or the poison chair, whichever one. You don't forget those things when you have someone that has been found guilty and is going to be killed.
Right. Well, here's the thing. I've never doubted any of my prosecutions because, I made sure that I was convinced that the people were guilty. Okay. And they did it. But at the end of the day, in order to have a functioning society, you have to mete out punishment in accordance with the law. And as a prosecutor, that's part of your job. And if it causes you so much pain that you can't do it, that's probably not a good line of work for you. But I think, it's not like punishments in our society are passed out willy-nilly. There's courts that try the cases. There's appellate courts that review them. There's Supreme Courts. There's appeals. There's habeas actions. And I think there's a system in place to look closely at cases that are serious cases and to basically make decisions and ferret out cases where there's problems.
Well, there's no secret. Millions of dollars go into a case before someone gets to execution row. I mean, it's a long hassle for the most part, sometimes into the teens, 20s. I mean, we can go back to 2 or 3. And River Bend, you've been there, I suspect, and you understand how this works. But in reality, you're just doing your job. And I don't want to use that as just doing your job, but you have to do your job because that's what you do.
Sure, that's right. I mean, in order for the system to work, okay, defense attorneys have a job to do. And their job is to make sure I prove my case beyond a reasonable doubt. And I've got a job to do, and my job is to make sure I prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. And if the defense doesn't do their job and the prosecutor doesn't do their job, the work doesn't get done. So everybody, the lawyers, the judge, the juries, we've all got to do our job to make sure the system functions correctly. And I think that's the case. And I think we've got 42 lawyers, and everybody's working hard. And in my office, we do everything from criminal cases to civil cases. We do appeals. And I think across the board in our office, everybody understands how important it is to do the best job possible.
I've learned a whole lot today with the United States Attorney, Joseph C. Murphy, Jr., who's our guest today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. God bless you.
Yes, sir.
That's our program today. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us here on this week's 30 Minutes program. Paul Tinkle, pre-recorded.
You've been listening to 30 Minutes, a community affairs program on Thunderbolt Radio. You can listen to this broadcast and others anytime by visiting thunderboltradio.com and following the Thunderbolt Radio and Digital YouTube page. Thanks for listening.